Hi, Christina Lynn here. My business is Lynn Financial. I love talking about money. I love helping average people like myself become above average with their money. I want you to be financially successful. So what we're going to talk about today is 5 common money mistakes that you might be making because they're very prevalent in our culture and they're accepted as the norm. However, although they seem innocent on the surface, they're really easy to get out of control and kind of snowball and hurt you financially in the long term. So we're going to start with the first one. The first money mistake that you might be making is that your car payment is too expensive. So it's part of our culture to want to have a nice new fancy car. It's a status symbol. I know as a female, our perspective, or at least my perspective, is I want to have something safe to drive that fits my kids and my kids' friends and all of their equipment. And I don't want something rusty and old. It might break down on me. It's not going to be as nice as the other moms that are picking up their kids from school. And so it's really easy to go to the dealership and pick out one that's popular and just sort of like not really intentionally, but like it just happens. Like the salesmen there at the car dealership are really good at like talking to you about how you can afford this. They ask like what your budget is, and then they work backwards, and then it's really easy from that point to like upgrade. Like, oh, I want the leather seats. I'm in the Midwest. I have to have heated seats, so therefore it like upgrades me to a premium package. And so before long, I'm out of my payment zone, but I think that, oh, well, it's just a little bit more so I can afford it. But when you look at the big scheme of things, if you have a take-home pay, let's say of $2,000, and your car payment is around $500, there just isn't enough money to go around because you have a lot of other expenses coming in as well. And though that level can be like on a sliding scale, depending on how much your other bills are or how much you have coming in. You need to really be sure that you stick to the payment that you can afford, and don't let temptation um, let you get carry like overboard. You know what I mean? Stay within your price range for the car. I'm actually a big fan of just driving an older car, maybe not buying a new one, but start with something old and rusty until you can afford a car that is within your price range. Preferably, if you can save up and pay for it in cash rather than having a car payment, that's the best way to go. So this one is harder for your ego because a car very much is like a status symbol for you. But believe me, it's worth it in the long run if you can be more humble in the short run, if that makes sense. The second money mistake is using your credit card points for rewards. I I speak from experience with this. I used to love using my Gap Visa, and I put everything on it. And then at the end of the month, I got like the statement in the mail, and it had little coupons at the bottom saying $20 free at Gap. And if I spent a lot of money, then I would get multiple gift certificates that I could use and go shopping for me and the kids. And it was so much fun. I just really enjoyed that. However, that $100 that you spend like on a dress or a pair of jeans or kid clothes for your kids can really easily turn into like $150 without you really like tracking it. Because if you miss payments, or if you're paying sometimes on the minimum required payment, the interest is accruing there. And so they're giving those reward points out for a reason. That's like a tactic for you to get to spend more, because the credit card companies are making money on the people who slip up, here and there, or some people really slip up. It's common. You're not alone. They make it really enticing to use the credit cards for the reward points. But just be really careful about that because it's so easy to slip up one time, two times, and before you know it, you're paying more in interest than you really intended to. Some people have this method down. Like my sister, for example, she can spend it and then pay it off, and she's very diligent about it, and it doesn't come back to bite her. But not all people can handle it that well. So it depends a little bit on your personality, but if you question your ability to really be diligent about paying it off each month in full without any mistakes, just don't let yourself be enticed by it. Cut up your credit cards and just stick to it, the debit card payment method. And I know that there's arguments out there that you shouldn't use the debit card because it's not as secure. Well, just look at your own personal situation, and if you're getting out of control, it might not be out of control to you, but if you have noticed in your history that you're either missing payments or not paying in full, you should maybe reconsider the strategy that you're using to put money on the credit cards for the reward points, because those reward points in the end most likely are not worth the extra price that you're paying in interest or it dinging your credit score. Okay, so the third money mistake that's common is that you're not saving enough for retirement. It's so common to just say, when I get my student loans paid off, then I'm going to start retiring, contributing to my retirement account. Or when I pay off my credit card bills, then I'm going to. Or when I get that raise, then I'm going to. Or when my kids, get to high school or graduate from college, then I'm going to contribute to my retirement account. Um, those keywords like later, after, if you catch yourself saying that and you're not contributing about 10 to 15% of your income into retirement, think twice about it, because it's really a lot harder to save the proper amount for retirement if you start at, like, later in life. It's so much easier to just um, steadily contribute a small amount over a longer period of time than trying to catch up when you're closer to retirement. So think really hard about that decision. I know it's not as fun, but if you make it automatic and you don't even count on that money in your budget, you just work with the net amount, you're going to be fine. You can do this. Believe me, you will thank yourself later on in life for making that sacrifice now. All right, mistake number 4, you don't have a budget. This one is not fun at all to get set up because it requires a lot of homework on your part. You need to print out credit card statements, you need to print out bank statements, you need to track where your cash is going, and you need to map out where you're spending money each month. So it's tedious. I mean, I love numbers and I didn't even like this process. So, but this is such a necessary part, because if you don't know where your money is going, it's super easy to spend more in one category than really you intended to, or you feel like yourself you should even do that. Um, a common one that people overspend in is going out to eat, or yeah, going out to eat, like entertainment. You don't think that you're spending that much, but really when you go back in your statements and add it up, it might be way more than what you're thinking that it actually was. And so get out that Excel spreadsheet or write it down on paper and track where you're going. Do it for about 3 months so you can kind of get an average of where you're spending your money each month. And then do some analysis on that. You can ask yourself or ask your spouse, like, should we be spending so much on this? Should we cut back here? I really want to take money from this category and put it in this category. When you know where your money is going, it's so empowering. So take the time, put the effort in to make this happen, because you won't regret it. It's hard at first. I'm with you, but it's worth the effort. And the fifth and final mistake that we'll cover today is the lack of an emergency fund. Um, I love emergency funds and I advocate actually using your emergency fund, so have it easily accessible. Don't like stick it away in a CD or something. Um, because the emergency fund is there for you to cushion your budget when it gets out of control. So if you have a tight budget that you're working on, when something unexpected comes up, like for example, I have to replace the windshield on my car right now, and it's $750. Oh my gosh. Well, there's like rain sensors on it and things like that, so it makes it really expensive. But that was not in my budget this month, so I'm still driving around with a crack in my windshield. It's ridiculous. But things like that come up that don't fit into your budget. So that's when you can use your emergency fund to pay for unexpected costs like that, rather than putting it on a credit card. Because the credit card, unless you're expecting like a big inflow that you can pay off your credit card with, the problem is just going to snowball. It will keep mounting up. So if you just don't get yourself into that cycle of putting it on the credit card and then like trying to figure out how to pay off those unexpected expenses after the fact, if you can be proactive and have a little cushion, an emergency fund to pay for those things, then you don't get yourself into this cycle of like, oh, where am I going to pay for this? So typically, financial advisors will say maybe like 3 to 6 months worth of non-discretionary spending. So, it doesn't need to be that technical, but get about 3 to 6 months worth of expenses into an emergency fund, and just let it grow little by little. Put in $50 at a time, and you'll get there eventually. And then when your daughter has to get braces or you get a flat tire or, something happens, you can use your emergency fund to just easy peasy pay for that. And then you work on funding the emergency fund back up to its proper amount. So these are money mistakes that are really common. I have made all of these mistakes in the past. You're not alone. So, it's easy to think, well, no one else is doing this, but you don't want to be like everyone else. You want to be better. You want to be above average. So I encourage you to put the hard work in, make that sacrifice today so that you can live more financially successful in the future. I cheer you on. You can do this. It's worth the effort. So you're that much closer to financial freedom if you can overcome these 5 common money mistakes. And keep your chin up because you are an overcomer.